And we're back, folks. Another Michigan football breakdown focused on the offense with Borges, or the Key, as he calls himself. All right. So I caught you on the board the other day, sort of breaking down the bubble, which we'll get to. He threw a bubble to the field to Roman Wilson, and there was a blitz coming field side, and there was a split zone. So there was a run control on the split zone, right? And Devin thought he should have given it on the split zone. And you said, "Oh no, he's drunk. He's drunk."
How many corrections am I going to have for that?
Right, right. So, but what I didn't catch, and I gotta remember next time to leave the camera on Al Board just a little longer. So he goes, he does his thing on the board, and he said, it's basic math, and hey, yeah, it says you don't throw it. You definitely go with the bubble. So he's done, and he says the Key has spoken. I shut the camera off before he said the Key has spoken. So see, I did not tell you guys last week. You give him an inch, he takes a mile. You give him a penny, he takes a pound. You give him a compliment, his head blows up like an air balloon. Oh,
Just
Al,
remember,
I love you, Al. You know I love you, man.
yeah, remember, Sam, that when you were a little kid and you got an A, you got 95%, you came home and waved it around in front of your mom, and she patted you on the back, and she says, "God, that's awesome. I love it." But you still missed a few, right? But that's, you got an A. That's pretty good. The Key doesn't miss any. Okay. You need the Key to figure out those 4 or 5 mistakes.
Well, let me just say this on Devin's behalf.
Well, who said I say about Devin?
Well, but let me just say this on Devin's behalf for a minute. He said there was that wasn't the play where you said he was drunk. There was another play where you guys disagreed. I know what it was, because there was a blitz, and Blake goes to pick up the blitz, and you saw JJ sort of leave the pocket. We'll start off talking about JJ. So JJ sort of leaves the pocket because, hey man, he sees a linebacker coming down the barrel, and I know you gave him a minus on it. I know
Absolutely.
I know you gave him a minus. I don't even have to see your notes to know you gave him a minus on it, right?
That was a no-brainer.
And Devin said, "Yeah,
You've never seen it before." I said, "Yeah, I don't grade guys on what they never seen before. I coach them for what they
he
did."
never seen it before." He said, until you're in the arena for the first time and have that first time experience of a linebacker running full speed at you, you gotta let that guy have a minute to gain that trust that his man is gonna make that play. Now, JJ, he has that trust, but you got to experience. That's not something that a coach can just tell a player and he goes to do it. That player has to experience it first, then he can go do it. That's Devin's point.
I got 3 grades I give the quarterback. 0 if he did a good job. Okay. Plus, if he does something over and above, maybe scrambles, makes a great play, or you know what I'm saying, or takes off on a run. And minus if he fails to do his job. All that stuff is great. It's a friggin' minus.
Is one of the few minuses on the day for
That's
JJ
right. I will say
McCarthy.
that.
Yeah, it was another Al. You Here's what you struggle with, and I want you to talk about this for a minute, because he's looked so good. I mean, how many balls have hit the ground? 4 in 3 games,
The
right?
efficiency of the passing game's gone through the roof. I mean, there's so few wasted plays. We talked about this a lot at the stadium that day. So few wasted plays, and this is what, when we get into the illustrations, I think this will be good to point out too. So even the bad plays, the plays I graded him down on, other than the lack of when he didn't pull the ball, ended up good. I mean, he on the play you're talking, bailed out of the pocket, threw the ball for first down. I like that. I say, that's I'm not pulling that completion back just because he had bad footwork, or he threw a sail route in, that guy had to dive to catch. Wasn't a very good pass, but I'm not pulling that 17, 18-yard gain back just because it wasn't a perfect throw. But you got to have a barometer that you're going by, and you can't cut guys slack just because, it's a completion. That's the definition. A bad coach watches somebody do something wrong and says it's okay. That's a bad coach.
Yeah. So here's what fans and pundits alike probably struggle with. They just beat up on some terrible teams. Like, if you're a really good team, you're supposed to beat up on a terrible team, right? And let me go ahead and give you your credit. because I said this was going to be the toughest. This would be a tougher team than Hawaii. And you're like, what were you talking about? what were you talking about? This is the worst team that they've seen so far. Hey, man, I couldn't account for all the injuries and how bad it would make them look.
Mm-hmm.
But what I need you to speak to, Al, is what part of what we've seen from JJ specifically translates, because they're part of the dominance is physical dominance,
Mm-hmm.
and that doesn't necessarily translate as much to better competition. But to me, watching him process the field and go through his progressions, his decision making, I feel like that'll translate. Am I off base with
Definitely.
that?
It does. And I think the accuracy does too. Both those, I think, are the big. Now, the biggest thing about it is the margin of error is less, right? We know that when we're playing teams that can close throws faster, that can get a little more rush, as we're going to get into here in the next few weeks, the margin of error is less, but it shouldn't affect his decision-making process or his accuracy once the ball snapped. You know what I mean? He still should be hitting those passes. Now, if he can't finish throws, and that's hard to control sometimes, if the guy's up in his face making a throw or something's going on that's hard to account for on his behalf, that could affect, instead of going, what was he, 15 for 18, he may go, 12 for 18. I don't know. But when the guy's open, he's hitting him, Sam. He's hitting him. And that means the plays aren't being wasted, and I can't see that changing any in other games. Now, again, there'll be more pressure. He's got to prove he can come from behind in a close game. So many questions that are still out there. But in terms of what he's been asked to do for 2 games, he's done it and some, in my opinion.
How do things change for you as a play caller? Because I said, so he throws the out to AJ Henning. That's not a play we tell straight, it's an out, right? But it's an out to the field. It's an arm throw. And I said in the press box at the time, the whole field is open. Not my meaning was not the whole field is open, but he can go anywhere on the football field. And so I'm it's not like they didn't call plays that had routes to the field. They obviously did. But odds are, more times than not, the ball wasn't going to get there in the progression, right? Or the receiver, maybe that receiver is going to be a decoy on some of those plays, right? I'm curious, when you have a quarterback that opens up the field like that, I have a sense of what it does to maybe a receiver over there that wasn't accustomed to the ball coming there. He's going to run hard every time now. But what does it do to you as a play caller when you have a trigger man like that?
Well, width and depth, run and pass. Now, you just talking about passing game, right?
Yeah, I'm talking. I'm
taking another step. Okay. Yeah, I'm taking another step. Now, from a passing game perspective, the flanks are all up. You know what I mean? Everything's up. We can throw the ball to the flank without any reservation, knowing that there's a strong chance of a completion, and they are now forced to defend the width of the field, the depth of the field. Okay, we can make the downfield throws without reservation and knowing that there's a good chance the pass is going to be complete. The run game, no different, because the quarterback poses a threat off his disconnects. Okay, whether they're bluff runs, zone reads, whatever. Now they got to defend the width of the field with a run game, right? Add to that, Sam, the run control, which was prevalent in this football game. There were 5 run control throws that were 5 for 5. There were 6 run controls running the game. The game was still in balance. And I'm not talking about later when it was lopsided. And he handed one off. So now he's forcing the defense to defend the width of the field and the depth of the field with the passing game, because every area has been hit with a completion, whether it's deep middle post, whether it's outside thirds, underneath flats, and every area has been attacked with a run game. Middle, off tackle, outside, with the runners and with the quarterback.
So I guess let me be more specific with my question. All right, because I said it's not like they're calling different places. You just now you can get there. You can get there, more places, more often on the plays that you call. But I guess what I'm curious about is when you have a guy like that, does it change your economy of offense? Do you say, okay, well, hey, there's a portion of my playbook that we hardly ever get to,
Mhm.
right? But now you have a guy that you can do everything. You can do
Right.
everything in the run game. You can do everything in the pass game. Does that change your thought process with your economy of offense, or you say, nah, I still got to keep it kind of, kind of confined because I mean we're talking about college kids here and 20-hour rule and that kind of thing. How do you balance the two, or is that the thought that even enters your mind?
Oh no, it always enters your mind, and as long as he can absorb what you're telling him, the drawer can be emptied. I told you that before. You can do whatever you want with him, uh, as long as everybody else can get it too. It's not just him, but he is the straw, right? He's the straw that stirs the drink. So if he can do all the stuff, you've got an experienced group up there. I mean, the receivers know the routes, right? They know how to formation. They know how to. You can change your perimeter looks anytime you feel like it. You can, run certain concepts and switch who's doing what so that it's different looking to the defense, yet it's no different to the quarterback. You're I think it's bottomless at one point. Now I wouldn't throw the whole thing at him.
Yeah.
Again, I studied the 49er offense when I was young. And I remember talking to a guy named Bob McKittrick, who was a line coach for the 49ers. And he was telling me the first year that the 49ers, Bill Walsh was coach of the 49ers, Bill Walsh tried to put in all the stuff he did at Stanford, and they couldn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't get it. Even for a pro team, it was too much. But the guys, where this becomes relevant, is the guys at Stanford could, because they had done it. They knew it. They could absorb it. The quarterback could make all the throws. You know what I mean? He could do all the stuff you're talking about doing. But when they took it a level higher, couldn't quite do it. It wasn't quite, they weren't quite ready to do that. I'll give you another example, Sam. I've coached quarterbacks. The advantage in college football is if you don't want to make it tough for the quarterback to make throws, you can throw a lot of passes into the boundary, right? So they're short, or you can sprint and move the pocket to the field because the hash marks are so wide, right? Well, in pro ball, that's hard to do because the hash marks are only 6 yards apart.
Mm-hmm.
So there's ways you have to compensate. But that's a long-winded answer to the fact that, to me, you can empty the drawer. You can do what you want to do as long as he can figure it out.
Yeah,
There's no limits.
That's where the coach, like you gotta. Coaches don't think like fans. They're like, I can do everything. Coach is like, all right, that was just his third game. Like, okay, so we got to make sure that he could do it. We got to make sure he could do everything within the current economy of offense,
Right.
before we start talking about adding more stuff. But his talent makes it.
It allows for it all, right? It
Yeah,
allows
man.
for it all. Yeah.
Yeah, it certainly makes you think, wow, we could do this and we could do that.
Mm-hmm.
You got to slow your roll a little bit.
And you got to be careful a little bit because, I said offense is like a candy store. There's all kinds of good candy in the store, but if you eat too much, you get sick.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to be discretionary as to how much you're going to do, yet you still want to do a lot if you got a guy who can.
Right. All right. So let's get into the bitter and the sweet, Al, from this game. I like to start with the bitter and work our way up to the sweet. There just hasn't been much bitter in these
No, I
first
mean
three
this has
games.
been
So,
it's been 3 weeks of a short conversation. We're not biting anything too sour. It's all pretty sweet. But the only thing, and we're going to get in the grade, so I'm not going to get. I know you like to do that as a separate deal, but I would have liked to seen the line play a little better. They're not, and again, it's they were bad. Yeah, they were bad, but I think they could play better than they played in this game, and that was one thing I thought could have been a little bit better. But other than that, I mean, what are you going to complain about? They didn't have a turnover again. I mean, no turnovers, right?
Mm-hmm.
They rushed for 192 and they passed for 273.
Mm-hmm.
They only had to play, I don't know what, a little over 2 quarters, right?
Mm-hmm.
26 first downs. Anytime you get more than 25 first downs, that's a hell of a game. And I don't care who you're playing, okay? They were 9 for 13 on third down. I mean, I could nitpick a million things, and I did during the game. But if I told you're talking overall broad brush play, it wasn't much bitter. It really wasn't. It was a pretty well played game, and they took care of business.
From a line perspective, you were already going to be breaking in a new piece, right? In Trente
Right.
Jones, who I want to focus on a little bit here, who physically might be the most talented guy up front. I mean, he is an outstanding athlete, and I think his connection with Sharon has brought a level out of him that maybe his prior line coach didn't think was there. And so I definitely credit his bond with Sharon for doing that. But there's no substitute for experience, Al, and the need for it was exacerbated by injury. You still haven't
Mhm.
seen the starting five together yet. First
No,
game, Ryan
very
Hayes
briefly.
was
Yeah.
missing, right? Then Carson Barnhart goes out. So when Trevor Keegan gets a little banged up, you wind up with Giovanni Ohadi
Mhm.
in the mix. And so I think you can explain some of the leakage
I think so. Yeah.
with
There's reasons.
inexperience, right? That's where I think these games, for as cupcakeish as they were, that those are the guys that really benefited the most because we did see some mistakes mostly from the.
Mhm.
I mean, the older guys made some too, but more so from the young guys making mistakes
Yeah.
up front.
You look at them from an overall perspective. And the first thing I look at is what is their experience, right? We've talked about that. Trente's really the only guy that hasn't played significantly. So there's going to be some growing pains here. That's a given. We've talked quite a bit about that. But just as important, Sam, and this is so important as you get into the games where you have matchup opponents, what I call matchup opponents, the Michigan States, the Ohio States, and not to, I mean, with all due respect to Maryland, I think Maryland's could be a match on defense. They're going to be a matchup opponent, but athleticism. Where is Michigan now, as opposed to a year ago, athletically? Because once the experience takes, which it's beginning to do, that's going to be the difference in games. Okay. Can we make those blocks? Can we finish those blocks? Can we get to those blocks? Okay. And you go across the board with those five. You've got Hayes, who's an athletic kid,
Mhm.
left tackle, moves his feet well, pretty darn solid, has a moment or two here and there, but pretty good player. Okay. You got Zenter, who you tell me from a weight room standpoint, and it shows up.
Yeah.
Oh, sometimes he doesn't play with as good a balance as he should. He's a very good athlete and extremely strong. Oluwatini, who is a step up athletically from the Stardust. Experience still, not here, but he's played a lot, but moves very gracefully, particularly on perimeter movements, where he's got to move on the pinholes, the horn plays, and all those. Keegan, big, strong, strapping kid, can move, And then Trente, who I think overall might be the most athletic of all five of them. If not, he's in the mix, that's for sure, is an upgrade from where they've been. So you take the five from this year to last year, and everybody thought they had a pretty good offensive line. This five is potentially quite a bit better.
Mhm.
It's just a matter of weaning the inexperienced guys and having them ready to play the big games, which I think they're kind of doing now.
Yeah, if you watch the tape close, and you'll see breakdowns of plays, they aren't guys just getting beat physically, and you wouldn't expect that in these games. Right? Although UConn, they actually that's the place where they were most respectable. I thought was up front defensively.
Yeah,
You know,
defensive line wasn't too bad. I'm going to tell you, too, you can laugh if you want, but I went and watched the Hawaii game again. They had a couple defensive linemen that had some quickness, a little better than they probably got credit for, but they were not a good defensive team by any stretch.
yeah,
But there
yeah.
was a couple of kids up there that tested your athleticism. So, but I think UConn in that area probably, I'm saying the offensive line didn't play quite as well. Maybe that's why is they played a
Yeah.
little less.
Well, but see, here's the thing. As I went over the film with you and the offensive film with you and Devin, I mean, it's not like guys were getting beaten physically. You
No.
had missed targeting. I mean, they just targeting the wrong guy, stepping with the wrong foot. It was more technique issues and target ID issues
Yeah, I
than
had very few MAs. I had very few MAs. Most of it was footwork technique issues,
Mhm.
or a late look at a blitz, didn't quite position yourself, saw it, but didn't see it respond quickly enough, and the guy went by. But in terms of not knowing who to block, I didn't see a lot of it.
Yeah, so that's where time on task is really going to help them and reps these games as much as galling as they were for fans because they were Cupcake City. I think they were functional. They were functional for helping you find QB1, and they were
Mhm.
certainly functional for getting experience for your offensive line and building depth. I mean, Carson Barnhart was backup for four of the positions.
Mhm.
And when the dust settles on this, I think they'll feel better about their offensive line depth once the offensive line contingent is fully back. The sweet, Al, the sweet. There was a lot of sweet in this game.
Oh, a lot of sweet. Yeah, they took care of business. Okay, and they didn't slop around. Like I said, there weren't any fumbles and missed assignments, which sometimes focus in a game that's hard to get motivated for can wane a little bit. And everybody's telling you how good you are right now, and a lot of noise out there, and it's getting worse and worse. So these kinds of games can get sloppy if you allow them to. But what I'm really, so far anyway, I think they've done a good job of maintaining their standard of play, and by that I mean not worrying about the fact that they may be playing a lesser opponent. Worry about what your standard of play is. If your standard of play is high, if your bar is high, and that's what you're focused on, you'll play well against no matter who they put out there, right? So I think that's been good. Another sweet thing is there must have been some world record for how many kids they got to play in this game. I mean, oh
Right.
my goodness, how many quarterbacks did they play before it was over?
Oh
I
man.
couldn't keep up. They were
7, I
putting
think.
quarterbacks in there that didn't
7.
have that had like 20 numbers. I didn't know.
Yeah, at one point the guy in the press box, I don't know if you were still in there at the time. He said Tommy Maddox on the field. It's like there was a Tommy Maddox. That's not him.
That's, I couldn't keep up. That's you talk about sweet. That is really sweet because mom and dad get to watch you play, and that's pretty sweet. I'm telling you, for some of those guys, that's pretty sweet. But that was good. I think the overall execution was not too bad. Again, you're getting clean handoffs. You're getting good ball security. You're not getting a lot of drop passes. Again, knock on wood. We all know that. So rushing, Corum had 71 yards, but had 5 touchdowns. I mean,
Mhm.
score 5 touchdowns very doggone often. And if he stays in the game, he gets 150 yards. He didn't play the whole game, so it's not a big deal. JJ had 214 yards rushing, 15 for 18. 15 for 8. I'll take that every. What is his completion percentage? Like 9,000? I
I
mean,
think
it's
it's like 88%. I mean,
88%. Who throws 88%? Yeah.
he had 3 incompletions in this game and 1 incompletion in the last game.
Yeah.
He was 4 for
Yeah.
4 in the first game. So
Yeah. And again, that'll get harder. I know, but say what you want. It's pretty good. Okay. 5.9 average for Blake, who only had 12 carries, but looks to me like Blake. I think he's right on schedule. I mean, but there's so many things to get excited about. So I think 465 total yards in the game, which is a very good total. I mean, it's not 500. They didn't have quite as many big plays as they've had, and that's why that yardage total wasn't through the ceiling. But there was still a lot of nice plays.
mhm.
So the sweet was sweet. The receivers were solid. Everybody for the most part did what they were supposed to do and took care of business. And that's all you can ask them in a game where you're favored by 40 something odd points.
No doubt, no doubt. All right, so that takes us to the portion of this particular episode where we get into the grades for each position group. So
Mhm.
Al, let's start at the receiver position because we haven't talked a lot about them, and then work our way in. What grade did you give the receivers in this game?
I didn't have a drop in the game. Did you? Did you see a
I have
drop?
a
Maybe
drop.
I missed something. Routes were pretty crisp. Uh, there was coverage, I think, twice that I saw. Again, I'm talking about when the game was still in, not when at the end when I graded basically, I think 46 plays. Okay, they had coverage on a +10 play. They had good coverage on a third down. On a third down play, but other than that, I don't think it was receiver issues. They were an A. I mean, I didn't see any that busted their tail
I mean,
blocking on the perimeter.
if you wanted to nitpick, it would be the zero blitz that JJ he retreats and he throws it up to Ronnie, and Ronnie got one hand on it. I'm sure. I think he just mistimed his jump. I think that's why he
Yeah,
with one hand.
yeah. I mean, mean, that brought the people out of their seats.
Oh, it would have. It would have.
It
It
did
would.
anyway. So I didn't grade him down for
Yeah,
that.
I
But
would not. I wouldn't either. I wouldn't
no,
either. But I'm saying you got to nitpick these guys in order to
well, I
grade them
mean,
down.
I don't even nitpick that much, but I'm bad. But um, they were good, and it's a strength, and it continues to be a strength, and it's going to have to continue to be a strength if they're going to be what they're going. If this kid's going to throw like this,
I tell you what, and this might have been that game that gets Ronnie on track. He led the team in targets. He led the team in receptions. He led the team in yards.
caught a
So
few more balls every game, right?
yeah,
Yeah, he's showing and something I pointed out to you is he's no longer playing that slot receiver as a solid. He's in the slot sometimes, but that's not his home position. His home position is the Z receiver, the flanker on the strong side of the formation toward the tight end, and it's given him a chance to get more balls caught down the field. Ronnie was doing a lot of slanting and dirty work inside before. Other than the internal fades he would run once in a while, but now everything's open to him. I thought it was a good move, and to move Roman more into that position, I think was smart. So,
gotcha. All right, move inside to the tight end position.
again, I thought the tight ends were really really good. I mean, I gave them I think an A minus. There's a couple of things I nitpicked, but they're for what Harbaugh likes to do. They're doing just what he likes to do. And something about them, Sam, they're different than a lot of the teams. They use tight ends, they throw to tight ends, they move tight ends around, they motion tight ends. That gives them their little niche in the league, and if you got guys that can do it, which they look like they do,
And they got a lot of them.
They got a lot of them. They got a lot of them, and they use them. They get to play. I mean, it is tight end heaven, but nobody so far, the blocking has been very solid. Now, you remember us last year at this time. We were, I wasn't saying that. It wasn't just one guy. It was a couple guys. And maybe the opponents were, I don't know. I'm just going by the results when the ball was snapped. But this year, they're tight. They're very tight with their technique. They're generally canceling their target when they're asked to block. And they're catching balls when they should be when they're thrown to them. Everything they should be catching, they're catching. So I graded them good, and I did the same with the running backs. I think the running backs, minus Donovan, I didn't see much drop off. Blake was 5'9" a carry, about 6 yards every time he touched the ball.
Right.
Okay, and they're willing to pick the blitz up, and there's some good examples of that when we get to the illustration. That's big now. If that quarterback and what Devin said is I give him a little crap, but he's right. What he's saying is you have to, when you get in that pocket and they bring an internal blitz, and the responsibility of that linebacker is the running backs. There is a trust factor. He's right about that, and they're building trust, in my opinion. They are building, the guys that are responsible for that are building that trust. And I used to tell quarterbacks, and I told Devin, everybody, coach, sometimes you got to stand in there when there's guys barreling down with no evidence to believe that you should, because you've been hit so many times. But that's that they're building the trust so that there is evidence. And boy, every time I see a back in a blitz pickup situation, I watch closely. But they just have many guys run over or swung and missed, or token effort.
Right.
Much of that at all.
Right. The interesting thing, this was Maryland was Donovan's coming out party last year. Remember, he had a 77-yard touchdown reception in that game, and that sort of announced his arrival as a real weapon, real game plan guy. Like they're going to game plan stuff for Donovan from that point forward. So be interesting to see if he can be back for this game. Jim made it sound like he was close. If in the event that he can't, I mean, CJ Stokes has been a real pleasant surprise. Maybe not for the coaches, but just for his readiness. I mean, physically, he's ready to go as a true freshman. But I think what would surprise people, like you talk to folks on the inside, and they do the mile per hour. They kind of it's the 40 time and the miles per hour. He was number one.
Yeah,
I know he was number one in miles per hour over Donovan and Blake. So it's like, wow, he might be faster than those two.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's and at that size, boy, if he gets their hands and he
yeah,
catches like them, which
yeah,
you probably would give them the edge right now, that'd be something to be on the lookout for.
yeah, yeah. And I didn't know much about him, you know, uh, coming in, but it's been a nice surprise. But their backs are good players. And I'm not sure from a national perspective or even conference perspective that Blake Corum gets the credit that he deserves. I watch a lot of national stuff. And hear a lot of assessments of the conference. I don't hear him spoke of as one of the better backs in the conference. And I've seen them all now, and he should be. He should be. I mean, when he touches the ball, he's electric. Okay, and when he has room, he's dangerous. But I don't hear a lot of that from the pundits, and
Mhm.
maybe I've become a little biased, and I see him a lot. But I've seen Ohio State's back. He's a good player, but I think with the same opportunities, Blake Corum could do the same things and maybe even more at times. So
And so, what grade did you give them?
I'll give the backs were an A. I'm just looking at my grade sheet now, and uh, I don't see any errors.
Yeah,
I
we
don't see a
talked a
lot
lot
of
about JJ already. I know you gave JJ an A.
Yeah,
Right?
I gave him an A minus. I can't quite go to an A yet, but he's 15 for 18. Come on, Al, right? That's what I can do, Devin. Now 15 for 18, yes. Well, he still has some flaws. He's not perfect, uh, but he is pretty damn good, and I'll take him. I would not I would not refuse his services, but he did. He's doing what they need him to do to win, and then we're going to see how that translates to the bigger games, but I think it's going to. I would be very surprised if it did. Not that there won't be bumps, because there will be, but
Right, right.
uh,
So,
he
what
he
about the offensive line? What grades you give them?
offensive line is the only one I graded them a B minus, and I gave them a B minus. Sam, I had some errors, but I was more disappointed that they didn't take the next step. And we talked about some of the reasons why, and those are legitimate. I wouldn't say that, but I don't go by that. I go by productivity. Period. And I think they were good. They were not bad, because if they were bad, I'd grade them bad. But they did a nice job, but they still had a few things that I think they need to still shore up, technique wise, more technique wise than anything. Like I said, I think the targets, other than a play or two, I think there was a dual play where there was a mix up in assignments on the left side. But that aside, I didn't see a lot of errors on who to block. But I wanted to see him a little more dominant in the running game, and although it wasn't terrible, yeah, but I gave them a B minus only because I didn't think they improved like they could have. So, and a lot of it may have been UConn just a little better up front. I don't know, but
Okay. Well, interesting quarterback situation now, Al, is Cade went in, he took a couple hits right away in the last one he got hurt on, and so he's gonna be out
Mhm.
for a few weeks, which begs the question, who's the backup
Whew.
on this team? I think experience would say, and you know how so you gotta take me in the mind of the coach, right? So you got a kid in Alan Bowman, or a young man in Alan Bowman, who started games at Texas Tech. Like
Mhm.
he was a young upstart, and they thought he's gonna be injury sort of set him back, and down there coaching change, and you know how things go, how things happen. But he has Power Five experience.
Mhm.
Davis Warren, at least to me, my novice eye over these couple of games, has been the more effective guy. So how do you split the baby there, Al? You got one guy who's actually done it, and another guy who in mop up duty has looked better. What would you lean towards?
I hate to say this, but I feel a little uninformed. If I could see them every day at practice, see how they, interact with the team, watch them throw a little bit under pressure, I could answer that question a lot easier. The little I've seen of Davis Warren, goodness gracious, I mean, he's looks pretty good now. He's in there mop up time, right? And the will of the defense may not be as great as the will of the offense at that time. So, but what he's doing still translates to success, and you can't ignore that. I kind of like him. What I've seen, I kind of like him, but I need more data. You're right about Bowman. Bowman, I'm saying, well, I haven't seen him either, but he has played. So the lean is always going to be towards the experienced guy if he has to go into a big game. And when's the backup go into the game? It's the middle of the third quarter against Ohio State, and it's tied. And all of a sudden, your starting quarterback goes down, and now who are you going to put in there? That's a nut cutting call right there now. So I would always lean towards a more experienced guy. But if a guy in practice showed me he was more capable on a consistent basis, and they're seeing more than I see him,
Mhm.
I would probably, if it was obvious he was more capable, I'd probably play him.
Yeah, and both guys will have some of the pressure off of them because Alex Orgy, that kid will play. He'll be a compliment to whoever the backup wound up being because of
Right.
the running threat, the running element that he brings to the equation. So hopefully
He's
it
kind
doesn't
of a
come
he's
to
kind
that,
of a
right?
package quarterback.
Right,
Yeah,
right. Hopefully it
and
doesn't come to that, right?
yeah.
Knock on wood. But this was a game. I mean, if you look at Maryland against SMU last week, they gave up 91 snaps, Al. 91 snaps for 520 yards. This was, to me, it was Cade's best game. Wasn't his biggest yardage game. That was Michigan State, but everyone throws for big yards on Michigan State, right? Um, I think he threw 383 versus Michigan State. He had 275, I think, versus Maryland. I looked at the stats this morning. Maybe no, he was 75%. He threw for 259 yards, but it was 75%. It was his most efficient day. And then he threw for almost 260 yards, had a couple touchdown passes in there. I just
Mhm.
thought it was the game where he felt it seemed like he was the most in his element. And so
Mhm.
this is a team you can get really, really you can build you can put some stats up on this squad. And
Sure.
I expect JJ to do that.
Yeah. If they play like they've been playing, they take care of him. I think there will be no issues on the offensive side of the ball. It will be a step up, though. It will be. I don't know how big. It may be a little more than you want, but still doable. And it may be more the same offensively. I'm talking about
Mhm.
Defense is going to get tested a lot more than the offense is from that perspective, on
Yeah.
paper anyway.
Yeah.
But I still don't see this offense. I don't, in my mind, don't see Maryland throwing down a gauntlet on the Michigan offense. Not
Right.
for any length of time. Now they may have their moments, but I think at the end of the day, the Wolverines got too much for these guys on offense. So they're going to need some breaks to beat them, which can happen, and their offense going to have to get hot, and I guess can happen too. But this offense right now is on schedule.
Yeah. No doubt. No doubt. Well, we need to stay on schedule too. That means we need to divert your attention to our film study portion, which is a separate video, right? We separated those so we can stay legal. All right. So we're going to do that. But I want to remind you, if you like this podcast, be sure to rate it, be sure to review it, be sure to tell all your friends about it. They can find it wherever they get their podcasts. That's Google, Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes, you name it. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to like the video, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you can get the notification whenever we add new content to the channel. And of course, as I always say, if you really want the 24/7 dish, then you need to follow us over on the MichiganInsider.com. That's where it goes down all the time. The VIP message boards, the VIP articles, the VIP access to all of the other team sites on the network, which are outstanding as well. So, and then of course, as I say, $1 gets you in your first month. And then once you become a full subscriber, you get Paramount Plus on top of it. So excellent value, excellent bang for your buck when you join us over on the MichiganInsider.com. But that'll do it for us on the Michigan Football Breakdown focused on the offense. Don't forget, check us out on the Michigan Football Film Study focused on the offense with Al Borges as well. Thanks. We'll see you next time here on the Michigan Football Breakdown.
Go Blue.